What's up, man?
How's it going?
Everything's good. Everything's good. Where are you guys located?
Twin Cities.
Twin Cities, yeah.
You all in the Twin Cities? Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure. Well, yeah, I'm here in Kansas City, so we're making a surprising run here in the AL Central. We're going after you guys.
Well, I'm from LA originally, so I'm a Dodgers fan, and
Oh my God, yeah.
a lot of people will hate that, but there was a lot of bad years in there, so I'll take the good ones now.
Well, you're preaching to the choir when you're talking about that. I still can't believe the Chiefs are a dynasty. I grew up watching those guys. I used to play basketball with them at the local community college, and the cops would hand out football cards, and we'd get autographs. And I mean, man, those days were so bad. Every draft pick was bad. Every coach was bad. Everything they did went to the right or left. It was like, stop. They were called the Griefs, and my dad used to tell me, if these bozos ever decide to win a Super Bowl again, the world's going to come to an end. And you know what happened after we had our parade in February 2020? The world came to an end.
That's great. Yeah.
So anyway, it was the Chiefs' fault. So if anybody wants to know, it was our fault.
Okay.
But at any rate, guys, thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
For having us.
You bet. So before we get into boundaries, I'm curious, how did you guys get through COVID? And was this collaboration kind of an outgrowth of that period?
Speaking for myself, I guess the short answer would be yes, but not an intentional one. The way I kind of dealt with COVID was just learning how to record and mix at a better level than I had before, and I spent a lot of my time just focusing on that stuff, and then ultimately was able to engineer this session and mix this record. And so as a result of COVID, I suppose that this record could be considered that.
How about you guys?
Steve?
Yeah, I guess for me, as far as the music goes, it's probably one of the more freer form sessions that I've played. And I would say that just there was kind of no agenda as far as what we wanted the music to be or how we wanted it to be. Like, let that inform us as how we were going to play it. Yeah, the only thing that how COVID formed that was, I remember when I was composing during COVID, and there was sort of this, well, what am I composing for? Because back, are we like? I really don't know heard again.
Hey, real quick, Peter, I don't mean to interrupt. You're clipping real bad. It's like there's like a Godzilla delay, but it's clipping really bad.
Oh my.
Yeah, you're better now. Yeah, we're
better
good.
now.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Great. Here, let's see. I'll just try to kind of recap. So yeah, over COVID, I was composing. Didn't really know exactly if the music was ever going to be heard or performed. And it was really great just for the three of us to get together and take a day or two and just say, let's get together, let's play, let's just kind of see what shakes out of that.
Sure.
And it was really a cathartic session, really.
What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think one of the things that happened during COVID, I think for a lot of musicians, is that we stretched our boundaries as improvised, and like a lot of people got into stuff they normally wouldn't have listened to. Like I personally listened to a lot more, I guess you could call it weird freeform stuff. So I feel like by the time this session happened, I was a lot more comfortable with the material that we were like going for. And it felt more at home, just because I'd spent a lot of time with that sort of stuff over those 2 years and just like let myself kind of absorb it.
Yeah. And in retrospect, I suppose I spent a lot of time doing loops and kind of ambient stuff with effects during that period because I was basically forced to just try and make music by myself, and that I got into that sound. So certainly unknowingly preparing for this record.
I think that was the good outgrowth of this time period, is that there were some elements of ambient, like there were ambient elements, there were electronic elements, there was different things that seeped into this idiom, and I think that was a positive thing. So before we actually get into the construction of this album, Boundaries, talk to me a little bit about, you all are, you all have been around the block for a while as musicians. How did your constellation come into focus, and how did this actual idea for the album become what it is today?
Zacc called us to see, he was working on recording, just like testing out to see, hey, can I record this? Can I figure this stuff out? It was mostly like a technological project. And then I think that day just our bass player fell through.
We just couldn't find one. Yeah. I called everybody and nobody was available. It was like a Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. or something, you know, and yeah. And I remember texting you guys and being like, hey, I can't find a bass player. Do you want to scrap it? And you were both like, no, let's play. Let's figure it out. So really, there was no intention of making a record. As Jake was saying, I had access to a studio and the opportunity to try and engineer like a full band session. And to be honest with you, we played it and I felt fine about it, but didn't walk away like, oh my God, that was amazing. And then I went back and listened to it a couple days later and I was like, wow, we really hit like a really unique, cool vibe here. And maybe we can do something with this.
I gotta wonder sometimes if Radiohead thinks that way. Like it takes them a day to be like, what the hell just happened?
Well, it's always good to take a little space from a recording after
Yeah.
you know.
I agree. Yeah, and I think there was also just, I mean, a kind of a camaraderie musically in the studio as we started playing. We just started to kind of try some different concepts out, and it was kind of like we just opened this big bag of musical concepts, and that's kind of been the fun thing about this trio is I think we've done maybe 4 or 5 performances since we've recorded, right, guys? I think, and it just seems to, yeah, everyone kind of takes us in a different direction, and there just seems to be all kinds of headroom for this group, which is really nice. And it's kind of unique, I think, to this trio where we don't have to stick to a regimented form all the time.
The one thing I've noticed with jazz musicians more than any other genre is that there's so many different incarnations, so many different bands. You know what I'm saying? So many collaborations. So things like this just kind of grow. I know even locally here, there's a lot of cats that are doing things nationally, internationally, lots of things local. It's like there's just a real interchangeability. You guys are like Legos, you can just fit.
That's fine. I've used that term before, like a Lego band. We just put it together.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to hear the other 2 guys expand on it, but I'd say that that's kind of part of the fun of jazz historically too, is like the vocabulary and the repertoire has been there kind of for everybody to learn from and to take from, and then you put different groups of musicians together and you get a completely different sound and a different outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liken it to being at a party where everyone there, but you only feel more comfortable in certain social situations with like certain people together. Like you have a friend that's your friend, but you want that other friend around to make the social aspect flow. And sometimes you get 3 people together and it doesn't work, and sometimes it does. And that's the beauty of it all.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. And sometimes you end up talking to 2 other people that you don't really know very well, but like can connect somehow through, mutual circumstances.
For sure.
And then the girl comes in, you're like, where did that album go? It's gone. It's evaporated. So what are you ultimately hoping the listener gets from this album?
Everyone that I know that's heard us live, at least, has just been like, that was really beautiful and relaxing. At least that's what I was going for in my own playing, is just finding one thing and just trying to like push something pretty for a long time. kind of be relaxed about it and let there be space.
Definitely. I kind of felt in the studio, and I think we all sort of were commenting on this, how we were just sort of kind of playing from this place where there wasn't an agenda or even really like ego involved, where we were just kind of expressing and kind of really giving ourselves to the mood of the song, which is kind of what I feel like when I listen to it. And it seems to be like that's kind of what people are picking up when they listen to a show or the album.
Yeah, I think collectively we all can play pretty technically, and I think collectively kind of tried to avoid that for the most part.
Yeah.
And just to play as one entity and create. To me, a lot of it is about like imagery. I hope that people are able to like see some kind of like imagery out of the ambient sounds that we made, you know. And I don't know what that is necessarily. Vast landscapes is kind of what I hear, but you know, everybody's experience listening to music is so subjective and so different. So I just hope people enjoy it, and yeah, maybe find some peace for a moment with it.
It is, just to kind of add to that. I remember when we were performing the pieces and kind of composing them on the spot, afterwards we'd be like, well, what would we call that one? And it was kind of interesting, some of the titles that we came up with. And I think sometimes we came up with almost the same one or something really similar,
Yeah.
just because I think we were all kind of feeling that mood.
So what about live shows? What's the scene like up there? What's going on with live shows with you guys?
Mm.
We have a release show coming up.
Okay.
Yeah. May 30th at this place called the Ice House. It's been it's a perfect size venue for what we do. They have a great sound system, a pretty like loyal fan base, great place to see a show. And then we have some other stuff on the calendar, but I feel like this is a band, thankfully, because it's not, you know, quote unquote jazz, that could play kind of anywhere and open for anyone, or, you know, close.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well put. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that we will, especially after we get this album out, we'll continue to kind of find some stuff. We've talked about getting on the road with this trio a little bit. It would be pretty easy. We could play all kinds of different venues because we don't need a piano. We don't have to carry around an upright bass, so we
travel light.
Yeah, we could fit in my Subaru. And yeah, so we'll be doing stuff, but you know, and then here in the Twin Cities, the music scene, jazz scene is strong. There's a new club here called Berlin that opened up recently. That's been a really great spot for the folks that are local, and also some regional people coming through, which has been great. And yeah, you know, it's a good scene here. I've been in the Twin Cities for almost 20 years now, and love it. In fact, going back to your earlier question about how we got in each other's orbit, Pete and I have played in a group called Atlantis Quartet since 2006. Is that right, Pete?
A little while there. Yep.
Yeah,
yep.
a little while. And then Jake, when did you move back to the Twin Cities?
So I went to high school here and I grew up listening to you guys. And then I went to college and moved back to the Twin Cities in 2013. So I've been here for a little over 10 years.
That was Jake's way of telling Pete and I that we're old.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was the kind way. You know, it's
Yeah.
interesting. You never know what a band or an incarnation can bring on. And I think about when you talk about '06, it's hard to believe. You remember the Postal Service, the dude from Death Cab that came up with that? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was listening to it the other day, and it's 20 years old, and that was experimental. That was him kind of getting, I think, getting away from touring and breathing a little bit. So you never know where projects can go and how it can explode and how people can take it in. So, you know,
very true. Very
sky's the
true.
limit, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's important as artists to continually have curiosity and try things out and go down different avenues because ultimately it informs the other things that we do. You know, I would say there's a level of kind of ambient experimentalism that we have more so in Atlantis Quartet than we used to. not necessarily directly from this group, but just because of these things that we've gotten into. So
Very true.
yeah.
There is a book that just came out from James Kaplan that was kind of analyzing the kind of blues session, and it really kind of dissected the careers of Bill Evans and John Coltrane and Miles Davis. And Miles is the central figure, and they were talking about how he got to the point where he literally wouldn't do any of his older stuff. I think towards the end of his life, when he came out of one of those retirements, he finally did a little bit of it, but he really genuinely was kind of an existentialist. He always wanted to look forward, wanted to reinvent. And I think that's one of the things that's always been refreshing about jazz is that, like I was saying, in this time of quarantine, there was a lot of electronic aspects that were coming into it, ambient aspects that weren't in there before. And I think just like with the beboppers, there was a level of them that didn't want to be like the moldy old figs. They wanted to have a new sound. And if they weren't daydreaming, trying to come up with something new, what would have happened to the idiom if that didn't happen?
Absolutely. Yeah. And Miles, I think, was, not only a great musician, but he was like a great orchestrator of those groups, almost kind of like like intentionally creating a Lego band of people that may or may not work well together.
Yeah.
And I mean, tons of legendary groups came from his, his supervision.
Yeah. And I don't like to harp too much on people that have been around him a lot, but whenever they do talk about Miles, they always talk about his ear, like the way he listened. He'd always sit in front of a stereo, or he'd always just listen, which was why there was the look. He would sit there and just listen. And if it didn't work out, he would just put the look out,
Wow.
So,
yeah.
yeah. Good ears.
So far, we haven't given each other the look yet in this trio.
If you do, it might go viral. You never know.
Yeah. I can't see you guys right now, though. So,
so the Ice House is the 30th, you said?
Yep.
Okay. So anyone that wants to pick up this album in earnest in the proper way, CD, hard copy, any of the good, where can they go?
Shifting Paradigm Records, label here in the Twin Cities that we're all a part of. ShiftingParadigmRecords.com, or on the Bandcamp as well. So
okay.
And it'll be everywhere, Spotify and
yeah,
music, all the good stuff. So
I try to initially steer everybody towards something that will actually go into your pocket.
Yeah.
Instead of
appreciate it.
Floating in the ether of streaming, but so. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking a minute out today. Best of luck with the shows. Best of luck with the album. I appreciate it.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Yeah, you bet.